Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Thursday, October the 17th. That makes this the news for Wednesday, October the 16th, day 967 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you from this major European capital that is under siege. We're currently under an air raid alert, and air defense has been active. And I see that the peeps are starting to come in. Nicola Jones is here. Hey, Cheyenne. Hey, Tanya, Mel, PH. How you guys doing tonight? Richard Prexis is here. Hey, Rob Walker. Nightshade. Hey, Parda. Al Holbrook. Hey, Dawn. How you doing? You are mourning, Mel. Why are you mourning? Hey, Robbo. Hey, Thomas Weber Jr. Hey, Paul Smith. Hey, Lars. Intravenous coffee is needed, is it, Lars? I would think that those Aurora Borealis up your way would be keeping you awake. Hey, Chef Deb. Hey, super user. How's everybody doing tonight? Good morning, Rob. It's morning for Rob. For me, it's the middle of the night. Hey, Bobby. No worries, Nightshade. Steve with a V. Of course. Hey, Yorkshire T. Hey, user 840-766-294301. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, other non-binary folks, how do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, bringing you the latest happenings from on the ground here in this major European capital that is under siege. We had some fun last night. Boy, I'll tell you, I slept through it. Slept like a baby last night. 136 Shaheds were sent at the territory of Ukraine. Of those, 111 were either taken out with electronic warfare or shot down. That's above 80% interception rate. It got a little better later in the day because at the time that I made these notes, 20 were still in the air. Now, since this time, we've come under air raid attack again. Explosions have been heard here in Kyiv. Air defense has been active. People are in the shelters, etc. In addition to the 136 drones last night, there were 2 missiles, both of which managed to avoid air defense and get through and cause some devastation in an industrial facility in Ternopil. That's not surprising. Ternopil is out west. It's sort of in the middle of nowhere. There's very little air defense out there. It could well be that the target selection took into account that they could avoid air defense to get to the target. What that industrial facility did, what they make, what they made is not clear. That information has not been disseminated. And so could it have been a military target? It could have been. Almost certainly it was. We just don't know what it was. The big news, of course, is that North Korea has entered the war. Now, I'm going to try to clarify some of the fog of war around this. I've been looking at this all day. And we're aware of the new agreements, right? The Mutual Support Pact and Defense Pact that was signed by Putin and Kim, back in July, I want to say. It was about that same time, for those of you who are regular followers of this channel, You may recall that I reported that there was an air base out in the far, far east in Kamchatka where they were building new barracks and new grounds, and we didn't know what that was for. Was it for an expansion of the Russian military or what it was for? It appears now that what that facility and what that building was for is to house and train some 10,000 North Korean soldiers, infantrymen, who it is expected will be dispatched to the front here in Ukraine or in Kursk by the end of the year, is the timetable that's being reported. Now, another number that's going around is 3,000. We think that the best sources that I can find seem to agree that it's likely that there are probably a couple thousand, maybe as many as 3,000 North Korean troops currently in the temporarily occupied territories and in Russia itself, in Bryansk and Kursk and Belgorod. Now, we know that the Death to Occupiers and Collaborators partisan group has reported that the North Koreans have established 3 training bases where they're doing live fire artillery exercises in the Mariupol area, and that a bunch of these guys are there. Now, it's also being reported that the Russians are hunting, they are out searching along the Bryansk-Kursk border with Ukraine, right? It's like a Tri-Cities area. It's where Bryansk and Kursk and Ukraine all come together right there in that corner. And the word is that the Russians are out searching for 18 North Korean soldiers that went AWOL. They deserted, defected, whatever. But they did that only 7 kilometers, about 5 miles, less than 5 miles, from the Ukrainian border is where they went missing from. And lots of folks are of the opinion that they are headed, trying to get to Ukraine, right? They may have seen some literature, I Want to Live literature, for example, that the Ukrainians pump out these leaflets with the telephone number and the website for I Want to Live that gives instructions to active duty servicemen of the Russian Federation ways in which to safely surrender and become a POW. And so we think that that is what's happening with these 18 North Koreans. I'm of the opinion, if it's all accurate, if this is true, I'm of the opinion that it's very likely that these 18 North Koreans, or whoever of them survived, are already in. No, the leaflets are in Russian, but again, the North Koreans and the Russians have a long history together. It's likely that the North Koreans have some level of Russian, as everybody in Central Asia does, right? Everybody in this country speaks Russian. So it's likely that at least one member of this group would be able to read Russian, if not all of them. In all likelihood, all of them. It's my opinion that I don't think that we would get this story if these guys weren't already in Ukrainian hands. It's only 5 miles. If they made it across the border, their chances of survival are very high if they can avoid the landmines, right? So it remains to be seen what happens. But I am hopeful that we are going to see some North Korean POWs and get some real live interviews with them in the next week or 10 days. If they had ways to communicate, if anybody had a cell phone, if they had internet access, and they had access to those I Want to Live materials, they would have been guided by the Ukrainians from where they were to a safe passage across the border, just like that. So we'll see. That remains to be seen. One of the things that we do know for sure is that in North Korea, in the last week, it is being reported that 1.4 million volunteers have volunteered to join the North Korean army. 1.4 million. 1.4 million. Now, look, let's be clear. It's fucking North Korea. There's no such thing as a volunteer. They tell you you're going, you go, right? Or else it's the end of your family. So North Korea has mobilized or is in the process of sending out the conscription notices to 1.4 million young men in North Korea. Now, how many of them they've sold to Russia? Because make no mistake, that's what's going on here. Kim has sold to Putin these people, and he is going to throw them away in Ukraine. It is just that simple. Now, you are not wrong. I see people making comments about food in the chat and stuff. You are not wrong. Endemic starvation in North Korea is not a bug, it's a feature of the North Korean dictatorship. Make no mistake, Kim keeps these people hungry so that they do not have the will to rebel. No, not a joke, not a conspiracy theory. That is well-known tactic of that regime. If you have never listened to an interview of a North Korean citizen who managed to escape the nightmare that is the cult of personality of North Korea, I really encourage you to. There was an interview with a charming young woman who managed to sneak across the border into China. She was, of course, starving, so she broke into a house, and she was astonished to find a bowl of food just out there in the kitchen. It was full of chicken and vegetables and rice, and she starts eating it because, of course, she's literally been starved by the people who are supposed to provide for her. She had not seen such a feast, she said, for much of her life. It was only about halfway through this meal that she asked herself, wait a minute, right? Because starvation affects your cognitive abilities too. It was only about halfway through this meal that she thought to ask herself the question, why was this bowl of food on the floor? It was because it was the dog food. That's what she was eating. She was eating the scraps, the leftovers of the family meal that had been put in a bowl on the floor for the dog. You hear these interviews from these North Koreans. Every single day is a struggle to find the 1,000 calories that are going to get you through to the next day. Every single day is a nightmare of malnutrition for the vast majority of the North Korean people. You look at a satellite map of the Korean peninsula, a satellite photo from nighttime. Seoul and South Korea is all lit up like any modern state. North Korea is pitch dark. They can't keep the lights on. Just the same problem South Africa's having these days. They can't keep the fucking lights on. And they intentionally do not feed their people so that they are less likely to rebel. If you don't know how Kim treats treason, he doesn't punish you. He punishes your family. Well, he punishes you too, but he also punishes your family. Now, when I say your family, you may be thinking of your wife and your kids. No, not for the Kim regime. When he says your family, he means 13 generations back and all of your relatives. In the case of one example of treason in North Korea, 30,000 people were rounded up. People who had no idea that they were related distantly, some shirt-tail cousin who had done this. 30,000 people. No, Jake, 13 generations. 30,000 people for one traitor rounded up and sent to his labor camps to be used as slaves. Make no mistake, that's what we're dealing with. When we deal with North Korea, and in 1 week, he's shoved 1.4 million people into his army. How many of these he intends to sell to Russia, I don't know. How many of these he intends to use for his, what he called, consequential and immediate military action is also unclear. We don't know what he's thinking because he's a fucking madman. And of course, as some people have suggested, it might not even be him that's really in charge. It might be the sister who works him like a puppet. That's also unclear, right? It's hard to penetrate the hermetically sealed nightmare that is North Korea. What we do know is that by all reports, 18 of these subjects have tried to defect, and I hope that they make it, and I hope we get to hear from them firsthand in the near future. Now, it is worth mentioning, in the Kyiv Post today, there is an interview with an academic here in Kyiv who is the vice chairman of the Ukraine-North Korean, He's the vice chairman of the Ukraine Democratic People's Republic of Korea group, which seeks to foster ties with North Korea. His take on this is very radically different from me. And I would encourage you to take a look at it. To me, he appears to be a North Korean apologist, is what it is. This guy appears to have some Soviet kind of tendencies. But it's a very different perspective, and it's worth mentioning that it exists. And you should read that article for yourself and get a different perspective than mine, right? Okay, so that's what's happening with North Korea to the best of my knowledge and as far as I know. Support for Ukraine in Germany seems to be ramping up. Merz, the opposition leader, right, to the Scholz government, is calling Scholz's policies toward Russia appeasement. In a joint session of the Bundestag today, he very specifically called out Scholz and his policies as appeasement. And he very strongly said that if it were his call, he would tell Russia to stop the bombing campaign against Ukraine today. And if they don't stop it with the glide bombs on residential, and civilian targets, then we would authorize Taurus and long-range strikes into Russia. This is Merz, is his name, M-E-R-Z, and he's the opposition party leader in Germany. His take on Russia is very strong, and he's not having any of it. And it was very good to hear those words. I would give them Taurus today come out of his mouth. I did not see any stare down. Well, Putin and Kim haven't met recently, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. You might be thinking of that time with the champagne toast where neither one of them drank the champagne, presumably because they were both concerned that the other one had poisoned it. I mean, that's not recent. That's from a couple years ago. Anyway, doesn't matter. We got some good news today. Biden had to put off his trip to Germany and the leader-level conference of the Ramstein group that he had called. Again, remember, the Ramstein group is the Ukraine Defense Contact Group that meets at Ramstein, Germany. And Biden had called, if I'm not mistaken, for October 12th, a leader-level summit of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. That is, premiers, prime ministers, and presidents of 57 nations were invited to that meeting. Unfortunately, Hurricane Milton, the deep state and the Democrats made Hurricane Milton come and cancel the Ramstein group meeting because they control the weather, right? It's unbelievable what my fellow Americans believe. It's literally unbelievable. Anyway. So we got word today that conference, which had to be canceled because Biden was unable to leave the country because of Milton, that is being rescheduled for next month. Now, in my mind, this is very good news. I have great hopes that we are going to get good news out of this conference. And if this conference happens after the elections and the Democrats have secured the White House, I think we're going to hear very good things. Now, the bad news, of course, talk about squirrely, huh, Jay? Talk about squirrely. Now, the good news, or not the good news, the nightmare the nightmare. And what really worries me, because it looks to me like Trump has given up trying to win this election. Did you see him dancing for 40 minutes and refusing to take questions? Did you see him play Ave Maria 3 times, once with the accompanying vocals by Pavarotti? Trump doing his workout mixtape in front of a town hall audience rather than taking questions. It's delusional. It's divorced from reality. Yeah, this was in Pennsylvania, Nicolette, a town hall meeting. So, town halls, it's supposed to be, oh, Mr. President, can I ask? Right? Mr. President, can I ask? It's supposed to be Q&A. It's supposed to be policy. He had 40 fucking minutes left. And what does he do? He makes the crowd sit there and listen to Ave Maria, 2 instrumental versions, and then the version with Pavarotti on vocals. Then right into YMCA. It was quite an eclectic mix. At that same meeting, John, you are right. Was that John? Yeah, John Messer says, at that same meeting, he told them, make sure you get out and vote on January 5th, which I hope they all do. I hope they all mark their calendars, and I hope they all get out to vote on January 5th. Anyway, what was the point of the Trump diversion? There was definitely a point to that. 39 minutes he danced, as only he can dance, him and Elaine Bennis, rather than answer questions from the audience. I am deeply worried about Pennsylvania, boy. I'm from Pennsylvania. I know Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is full of some of the most illiterate, backward, creationist, evangelical, nightmare, history revisionist. We're home to more registered hate groups than any other country or any other state in the country, Pennsylvania. And in 2016, I knew that Trump was going to win. There was no doubt in my mind. I had high confidence in 2020 that he was not going to win. Until today, I had high confidence that he was not going to take Pennsylvania. Then today, I saw this insane thing. Gays for Trump, who are trying to get the Amish registered to vote, and they're having some success. Now, the Amish, do you know why you don't why don't you shut up? Because you don't know what you're talking about. Well, Terry, I'll tell you something. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I know Pennsylvania pretty well. I think I know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. And at any rate, he's trying to get, and he's having some success getting the Amish registered to vote. Now, there's about 80,000 Amish of voting age. Biden just barely won Pennsylvania last time by about 80,000 votes. If there's the thing about the Amish, boy, is that they do stick together. There are not going to be a lot of the Amish that go to the polls on their own. If their communities vote, they will all vote. That kind of voting bloc power is what concerns me in Pennsylvania. Okay. The Amish have not traditionally voted, but they are all able to vote if they want to. If they have, now they're not known for change. But I saw a video of this guy registering the Amish to vote, and I saw him register an elderly couple, and they are clearly going to vote for Trump. It's not against the rules, it's against tradition. They prefer to leave it up to God. That does not mean that that can't change, and there are forces trying to change it. Very disconcerting. The Amish aren't anything historically. They're apolitical. They believe that God manages everything and that they don't have a say. So there's in what I saw today on the video was a Trump supporter registering the Amish with the intent that they would vote Trump. And they weren't very vocal. For the Amish, they were pretty vocal about their concerns. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's it, Dusty. That's exactly what he's doing. You know, the left aren't the ones that are bringing religion into politics. Let's be clear about that. So the good news is that the leader-level Ramstein contact group meeting is back on for next month. And I am hopeful, because it will be after the election then, that we might see an even stronger response from Biden and the leaders of the allied forces. Senior U.S. Senate official today said very clearly, he said the quiet part out loud. It's okay for us to shoot down Iranian missiles over Israel and not Russian missiles over Ukraine, because Iran doesn't have 6,000 nuclear devices pointed at us. He said it out loud very clearly. It is the fear of Russian nuclear retaliation that is hobbling the United States. Make no mistake. Pardon me. The weather here is quite seasonable. It's wet and rainy and cold. No, China can't replace the United States as a superpower because China punishes innovation, right? It's a communist regime. That's not an environment that encourages innovation and original thinking. Everything is done by committee. If the iPhone had to be built by committee, it would be a piece of shit. It was driven by the insane OCD madness of one man. You can't get that kind of radical innovation out of a communist dictatorship. The fact that Russia and China and Cuba and North Korea are in the demographic crises that they are in is because they are cultures of death that don't encourage people to have children, right? You don't want to have children if you don't think there's any future. You don't want to have children if you think they're just going to be sent off to somebody's foreign war. You don't want to have children if you don't think the quality of their life is going to be better than the quality of yours. It is a recipe for disaster. We are watching in real time at this critical inflection point in history the societal suicide of the Russian people. They are like lemmings following dear leader Putin over a fucking cliff of self-destruction. Make no mistake. The last I checked, the ruble was at 97.24. This is not good. Let me just see. I think I have it here. Let's take a look at what it is now. $97.50. It lost another quarter point today. It's rapidly approaching that 100-to-1 level that makes the Russian people very uncomfortable. It's driving hyperinflation in the import goods market inside of Russia. We're seeing the ruble dead as a currency for international trade. We're seeing core interest rates at 19%. You want a mortgage in Russia today? You want to have a family? You want to build a future? You're paying 22% mortgage rates just to get into the market. And if you have any credit history problems, fucking forget it. Fucking forget it. This economy, so-called, of Vladimir Putin's is a lie. The Russian government is printing money and buying goods from its own defense industry in a wage inflation cycle that only ends one way, just like it did in 1991 for these people. They're making the exact same mistakes again. The exact same mistakes again. It's insane. The population of Russia is dropping at a rate of one person every 41 seconds. One person every 41 seconds. Over 1 million people since the beginning of the year have either fled Russia or died and not been replaced by a new birth. Because the birth rate is low and the death rate is high. This is a society not in decline. This is a society on its deathbed, is what you're looking at. And then we see the internecine feuds. Kadyrov and the Dagestanis in an open blood feud, inter-ethnic conflict, the threat of civil war coming to Russia. It's really not looking good, pal, I'll tell you. Okay, let's come back to Ukraine and let's come back to Kyiv today and to a meeting of the parliament where, as I suggested last night, it was likely that Zelensky was going to unveil his 5-point victory plan before the Rada today. He did. Now, here's the important thing to remember about this. I'm going to give you the 5 points in highlight. Every one of these points also has a secret codicil, a classified codicil, that is for eyes only. So, for example, the first point, get us into NATO. And I think by that, get us into NATO, what they really mean is follow the German plan. Remember when Germany as a state was divided in two, East and West Germany, and West Germany was in NATO and East Germany wasn't? Do that for the temporarily occupied territories and free Ukraine. Let free Ukraine be a NATO member. Keep the temporarily occupied territories out until we can get them back. That was point one. Now, the joint air defense piece. Looking for one of our letters, right? You guys know Vanetta Larrett here, who, by the way, is one of the sponsors of tonight's live. Everybody thank Vanetta Larrett. Vanetta and Rob Martin are the sponsors of tonight's live. Thank you, guys. Vanetta Larrett manages our Google Doc share. And in there is a letter to Congress, the Senate, and the White House that supports a NATO-supported no-fly zone west of the Dnipro. Let our NATO allies in Poland and Romania help shoot down these missiles that come in over Ukraine, right? Easy, simple. That's number two, joint air defense, and lift the restrictions against long-range strikes into Russia, which is something we have another letter for, right? Unrestricted weapons use. V has that letter as well. Now that point two, there's a secret codicil or a secret annex to that point that is visible only to NATO members who could actively participate in the process of joint air defense. So Romania, Poland, etc. Point three, deterrence, a comprehensive non-nuclear aid package to deter Russian aggression. That has a classified annex that is available only to representatives of DC, London, Paris, Rome, and one other, like the big players. Then the third point was strategic and economic, and post-war recovery was the fifth point. Now, this post-war recovery, I'll tell you, man. Now, really, seriously, this is the most important part of this whole thing, especially for Americans who care about our place in the world. Right? Remember, I didn't come over here because I thought, ooh, I'm an American. Right, I can I can give the Ukrainians what they need to win this war. Fuck that noise. I came over here to learn from the Ukrainians because the Ukrainians understand the Russians, and it has come to my attention that the Russians are our enemies, and we fucking get them wrong every time. So I came over here to try to learn from the Ukrainians about how the Russians think, how the Russians work, and what we can do to stop them and their termites that have been eating at the foundations of our democratic principles, our democratic institutions, for the last 30 fucking years, longer than that, since there was a Soviet Union, 40 years, 50 years, whatever it is. And we still get it wrong. As Winston Churchill said, you cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in his mouth. And I think that's the situation that we're in the U.S. So I came here to learn from the Ukrainians, to try to understand what we have to do to win this thing. Point five, dig this, point five of Zelensky's victory plan is, let us Ukrainians who have the battlefield experience against our common enemy take up the slack from the American troops at all the NATO facilities in Europe. Let them go home and we'll be the new trainers. We'll be the new educators. And America, like Trump wants y'all to leave, go home, go, just go. Just go. Europe needs to solve this on our own. Now, I don't know I don't know about you, but one of the lessons of history that I understand is that our prosperity in the United States is very much impacted because of a peaceful and prosperous Europe with which we are deeply aligned. But you can see what Zelensky's doing. He's trying to Trump-proof European support for Ukraine at a critical moment in this war. That's what he's doing. It's not a fuck you to the United States. That's not what it is. The United States keeps saying fuck you to Ukraine. That's the problem. We keep promising weapons packages. We don't deliver them. We keep promising aid. We don't deliver it. We keep promising. We have this book. We make these grand speeches, and all the politicians get their fucking photo ops, and then nothing gets done. Where the fuck is the aid that this country was promised back in April? Why isn't it? Why the fuck is Australia sending 18 more Abrams tanks to Ukraine, total of 49, than the United States has when we have 1,700 of them sitting in fucking mothballs? What is going on? Now, milady, you are not wrong. You are not wrong. But I would go even a step further. And I would suggest that it's not just the nuclear weapons, the fear of nuclear escalation, that's holding us back. It's not just the MAGA crowd that still holds the reins of the Republican Party. I think that Russian saboteurs and spies have so deeply infiltrated the government of the United States, and very likely our military as well, that we are concerned about what's going to happen November 6th if Trump loses by a slim margin. That's what I think the real worry is. If Trump loses by a slim margin, if there is enough for him to organize his white supremacist fan base into taking up arms, into sowing violent physical division inside the United States, how are we going to be there for any of our allies? Oh, you live in Florida. I was staying in Winter Park in May when the Azov Steelworks fell. I was in Winter Park, and so that was May of 2022, right? And I remember when I was there, it was in the news. Some Nazis, literal Nazis, had stomped some old man on the street. Just stomped him nearly to death. Literal American Yahtzees. As if there could be such a thing. As if there could be such a thing. You can't be an American and a Yahtzee. Because by definition, it's easy. Right, guys? It's so fucking easy to be an American. All you have to do is admit that all people are created equal, that they are all entitled to equal protection under the law, and then be willing to fight and die for that principle. It's fucking easy. It's so easy. It's the natural state, I think, of the human person. But then we have these narcissistic criminals who say, no, the natural state of the human person is for me to be in charge and own other people and to use them as objects for what I want and what I need. And that's what we're seeing Kim do right now on a scale that we have not seen since 1944, where he's taken 1.4 million of his own people and shoved them into uniforms. And now we don't know what he's going to do with them. But he can do whatever he wants because he has kept them hungry. He has kept them ignorant. He has kept them weak. Do you know that the average North Korean soldier is 7 centimeters? Wait, I have to figure out, I have to do the math. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 6 centimeters shorter than his South Korean brother. The average North Korean soldier, because of chronic malnutrition in childhood, chronic protein deficiency in utero, is a full 6 centimeters. Somebody can look it up, but it's something like that. It's close to 6 centimeters shorter than his South Korean brother. That's about, what is that? That's 2 inches, like a little over 2 inches. Yeah, Pugga Mahone, you're right. I think that's what happened. I think he sold them to fight. Okay. Zelensky also said that Ukraine was now fighting not only Russia, but North Korea and Iran as well. And it does appear that that's true of North Korea, certainly. And it's not unfair to say that Iran, of course, is the huge supporter. Right, a bunch of apocalyptic theocrats. Because that's what you want. Who thrive on Sharia. Anyway. Now, we talked yesterday about the cross. Look, stop talking about World War III. We're 2.5 years into it. World War III started on February 24th, 2022. Make no mistake. That's what the history books will say. World War III started with the invasion of Ukraine. Only it's 1939, right? And this is Czechoslovakia. That's where we're at right now. Segal in Kursk. Yet Segal's not going to be in Kursk. That letter was intended for internal propaganda and consumption. Now, we're talking yesterday about the cross-border raids in Belgorod. And I had suggested that it seemed like they're not really trying to invade Belgorod. They're just trying to fix Russian forces there, right? They're just trying to... Oh, I just noticed Patrick Chamming said, democracy versus authoritarianism. That is the existential conflict that we are involved in. I agree, Patrick. Absolutely, you're correct. Now, in terms of the Belgorod cross-border incursions, are the Ukrainians trying to open another front and invade Russia again in Belgorod? I didn't think so. It seems to me that they're just trying to fix Russian troops there and keep them away from the more active areas of the border. But I could be wrong, because according to Bandera Fella reporting today, he claims that Ukraine is obliterating the Russian forces on the Belgorod border, and that these incursions are picking up steam. Multiple sources are reporting that in Kyiv, Ukrainian armed forces have eliminated a regiment of Russian forces in the north of the village of Lipsky, which is the second Kharkiv incursion, right? The western one. And taken a small settlement on the western edge of the Kharkiv front. So it appears that in the Vovchansk and Lipsky directions, the Ukrainians are making advances, unlike the rest of the front along the Donbass and in Kursk, where they are being rolled back slowly, inch by inch, meter by meter. Oh my God! Did you guys see the video I put out of this? Of course you didn't, because it's being suppressed. I think it had 300 views or something right before we started here. And it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen. You guys know what dragon's teeth are, right? Those big concrete pyramids that are intended to interfere with tank advances, right? You know what a Baba Yaga drone is? They're the big, heavy-duty drones that were developed by Ukraine. Dig this. The Ukrainians are hooking the dragon's teeth onto Baba Yaga drones, and the Baba Yagas drop them on the highway, specifically the R200 highway in Kursk. They drop them on the highway. Then the FPV drones find military vehicles and targets and start pursuing them. Those guys speed up, they start running away, and like hunters, like hounds to the hunters, they drive these Russian military vehicles smash dab full speed into these dragon's teeth in the middle of the road. Yeah, one would think. Maybe it's not the Baba Yaga. Maybe it's a different kind of drone. But it appears that that is what's happening. Now, somebody just said that it's CGI. Maybe it is. But I'll tell you, there's lots of pictures of crashed cars and dead Russians around these. Maybe the part of the Baba Yaga drones, maybe that's the lie. Fog of war. But to the best of my knowledge, something like that is the case. Take a look, Bip, on my page. There's a video. There's screenshots from the videos. And I did a video about it today. The Russians are posting the photos of the deceased and the crashed cars. So now look, I admit, it's fog of war. None of us really know what's going on at the front. And if this turns out not to be accurate, if we get good information tomorrow that it's something else, I will be the first one to apologize, right? And clarify the situation. But something like this is probably true. Maybe they're not using the drones to drop the dragon's teeth. Maybe they didn't put the dragon's teeth out at all. Maybe the dragon's teeth were put out by some Russian commander who thought it would be a good idea, didn't tell anybody else. And then the Ukrainians just decided, hey, if we start chasing people with drones, they'll smash right into these because they don't know they're there. Couple dozen. Just a couple dozen is all that's being claimed at this time. So at any rate, right, let's not get bogged down in that, but that is the story that's coming out of Kursk today. A spokesman for the Ukrainian Armed Forces said that there are no intact buildings left in Toretsk. The entire city has been destroyed. That means that there are no shelters for civilians or soldiers to hide in. There are more reports of Russian soldiers changing into civilian clothes. Changing into civilian clothes. This is a war crime to simulate civilian status for the purposes of offensive action. That is a war crime. I mentioned before, Australia has pledged 49 Abrams to Ukraine as part of a new 245 million Australian dollar package. It was either an ATACMS or a HIMARS strike, but it was a cluster munitions strike on Russian training center in Zaporizhia. We do not have reports of casualties yet, but there was apparently. Now look, this is crazy to me. You're the Russians. You know what weapons the Ukrainians have. You know, if you put a training center in Zaporizhia, it's within HIMARS distance. It's within ATACMS distance. Why would you do it? Why would you not train your people farther from the line? No, there are rules in war. That's what the fucking Geneva Convention is. Don't tell us there's no rules in war. Thank you, PT. Stupid fucking cunts. Okay. So, you know what the Ukrainian weapons can do. Why do you put a training center that's within 60 miles of the front line? It makes no sense. But naturally, the outcome, it's like these people have the memories of goldfish. They don't remember that the last training centers in Zaporizhia were also destroyed by ATACMS and HIMARS. NATO will not be cowed by Russia, says Mark Rutte. So the new Secretary General of NATO said in an interview with Reuters today, we will continue to do what we must to ensure Putin's failure. He was in Wiesbaden, Germany today when he said this. Wiesbaden is going to be the new hub, the new logistics hub, that the Europeans will be dispensing aid to the Ukrainians. He was there as part of NATO's plan, it appears, to try to Trump-proof aid to Ukraine. The logistics in Wiesbaden are being taken over by the Europeans. It will no longer be the Americans that are responsible for the logistics of handing out aid, trying to Trump-proof aid to Ukraine. That's what he was doing there. Meanwhile, the U.S. ambassador to NATO, Julianne Smith, said that the U.S. will continue to support Ukraine, but there is no change in long-range weapons policy. Russia on fire, Moscow military airfield. A fire broke out in the administration building. It was about 800 square meters at the last that I was aware of it. We don't have any more details on that or what the cause of that fire was. And finally, France is to supply one-way attack drones in the coming weeks to Ukraine, according to the defense minister, Sébastien Lecornu. Mr. Lecornu said in an interview today that those drones were on their way and would be at the front lines within the next couple weeks. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen and other non-binary folks, holy cow, it's 1 o'clock already. All right, so first, let me thank Vanetta and Rob Martin, who are the sponsors of tonight's live. Thank you both guys. I was talking on here about trying to get to Venezia because there's an American who's been who from the International Legion, who was wounded in action and is in a hospital down there, and nobody speaks English. There's no other Americans there. Nobody speaks English there. It's a very difficult situation for him. And frankly, it's hard for me here. I don't talk to a lot of Americans here. I mean, I monologue every night to you guys, but it's not the same. You know that. So I'd really like to try to get down there and spend a couple days with him, listen to his stories, play some cards, you know, like a normal person. And so Rob and Vanetta got behind that. And the PayPal is in the description. If you want to help me get to Venezia to see this guy, the PayPal is in the description. I can't go until after the 26th of this month because the next Laughter is the Best Medicine Kyiv show will be October 26th. So I would like to go down after that. Thanks, Fitz. I can arrange company for you to meet my contact. Where? In Venezia, Dusty? Because I don't know anybody in Venezia. I would love to have a local contact who could show me, the locations of major strikes against the city, give me background information, local color, that kind of thing. You should be able to message me on this app. If you can't, I think my email address should be in the description, right? With Matt? Your contact met with Matt? Are we talking about the same guy? Oh, holy shit, dude. Text me. Let me know what's going on. Would you please? I think that's right. I forget. I'd have to look at my signal chain. Night, Julian. Thanks, Bobby. No, I know. I don't expect you to. But text me or message me or something, okay? Good, good, good. Okay. So, if you guys want to support that, I would appreciate it. The PayPal is in the description. Thank you, Dusty. Please do. And I want to thank the moderator team, best moderator team on the Tickety Talk. Cheyenne, Vanetta, PT, Jay, Travis. Did I forget somebody? It feels like I forgot somebody. And Lars, who has the Discord server and the Alexievich archive. Vanetta, who has our Google Doc share. And of course, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, where these lives get reposted. So guys, we are at the normal time that we end, but we always do Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, comments, points of observation, or personal need, chat them in now, and I will try to take some questions if anybody's got anything. Bah, CyberDoc. You're funny. Thank you, milady. Thanks, PT. Hey, Russell Kennedy. If a Russian soldier is in civilian clothes captured, can they be treated as a terrorist or a spy? Now, I'm not a military lawyer, Fitz, but I know that what the Ukrainian military is doing is they are documenting every case of war crime that they can. And so that guy, I believe, would be put in kind of a special category of POW, where he's also under investigation by the Prosecutor General's office for war crime. Do you think Russia's interfering with the election or has plans on trying to? Russia's definitely interfering with the election. I mean, we know that. We know that. Make no mistake about it. Is Russia retaking large parts of Kursk? Chad said 40%. 40%. That's... Now, Bobby, maybe my data's out of date, because if you're talking about Chad Scott, I would tend to defer to him. If he says that Russia's taken back 40% of what Ukraine took initially, he's probably got the latest and greatest information. My understanding was that Ukrainian gains got to about 1,300 square kilometers, and as of today, they are down to about 800 square kilometers. So that's about 500 to 800. That's about 40%, give or take. During World War II, they was given a box 6 feet under. I don't know what that means, Lars. Oh, yeah, Russian disinformation is alive and well. I do think that that's Trump's plan. I don't think he's planning on winning the election. I think he's planning on fighting the results and pretending that he knows or pretending that he doesn't know he lost. And Trump will do the same. Yeah. Any word on air sorties being flown a day? Glide bomb attacks from the Russians are back up. They're keeping the F-16 sorties very quiet. We don't know what's going on there. Germany has been deporting a lot of RF agents, but I don't think deporting is enough. I don't think that they're deporting enough. I think that there are more than we know about. And then, of course, what the Russians are doing is they're turning to hiring local thugs. In the United States, for example, they hired a couple of Hells Angels to unalive, I forget if it was a prosecutor or a judge, but they hired Hells Angels to unalive an American in America for something related to Russian interests. Over 100 preemptive lawsuits already filed by Trump. I don't know anything about that. Thank you, Betsy. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks, Robbo. All right, everybody. I really appreciate everybody stopping by. I appreciate the moderators and the other guys who support this channel so much. I literally could not do this without you guys. So I'm deeply appreciative. And with a little bit of luck, we could maybe do some good for this kid down in Venezia and get a look at the town as we have in Kyiv and in Odessa, as well as all around Kyiv. And I appreciate you guys being there for me, because if you weren't, I could not be here for you. So thanks, everybody. Make it a great day.